Welcome to this Lead 222 videocast, part of our leadership training series.
When we think of youth ministry in the church, I think one of the first things we think of is youth and ministry. Those two things breed creativity. But I think there are some things we need to understand about creativity. First, there's low forms of creativity and high forms of creativity. Low forms of creativity are things like novelty, cleverness, craftiness. Higher forms of creativity are things like invention, innovation, and art. And I think as youth ministers, we spend a lot of time on the low ends of creativity, doing a lot of things that are novel and clever, but not so many things that are innovative and really on the art level of things. And I think that's the shift that's taking place in our country and kind of where we need to intentionally go as youth workers. I think the most important thing right now that all of us in youth ministry need to keep our heads together on is the fact that this truly is about reaching students, helping students grow in their faith, helping students come to know Christ. And I just know that, I know in my own life, it's been real easy to get derailed with all these different conversations going on about where we're at theologically, is how we're integrating with culture. And I think those are important conversations. But I also know a lot of hours have been wasted going places that aren't really leading us into better relationships with students and spending time with them. We just need to be careful. I did a little self-check a couple years ago looking at where I was spending my time and realizing that less and less time was being spent one-on-one in relationship with teenagers. And I made a change to that. And that meant cutting out a lot of extra stuff I was interested in. But it made a dynamic change in my ministry and what I was doing. Students are where it's at if we're going to call ourselves youth ministers. Right now, probably the most important thing that I would want every youth pastor to read, if they were going to read one thing, is a report that came out by the Institute for American Values, the YMCA, and Dartmouth Medical School called Hardwired to Connect. And it talks about how morality, how faith is passed on, and how we have a biological hardwiring to connect to people. Really, it's just telling us love God, love people is what this report, secular report, is telling us, is that spiritual meaning is important, but it's giving us new eyes to see Scripture. And the report only costs about $7. It'd take you like a couple hours to read, but it'll really get you thinking in different directions about how important relationships and community are to being able to share truth and pass on God's love to other people. I think one of the hard leadership lessons that I'm learning right now is how to give things away and truly transfer what's going on in here and in here to other people. So many times I think, I just expect people to be able to read my minds or to get it, and I realize that I'm really hurting them and not helping them, succeed, because I'm not really spending the time with them to really transfer what's going on in my heart and mind to them. And I think as a leader, casting vision is probably one of the most important things that we do to the people that help us and that work with us. And we have to be able to do that effectively and help them be successful in carrying that out, not just trying to figure it out on our own. So many times what makes sense in our head just doesn't come out and articulate itself right. So I'm learning how to take more time to do that for the benefit of those who work around me and volunteer for me too. I love reading books, I love reading magazines, journals, things like that. But one of the things that I've realized as I've actually started publishing myself is how long it takes for those ideas to actually get into print, to get to a place where I can read them. So what's made me realize is that the real heart of ideas exists inside of people, and that most ideas are more powerful when they're presented in context. And so for me, mentoring relationships are able to speak to my life in context. They're able to look at hundreds of different factors that are going on in my life, and I don't even think they consciously think about them, but they're able to look at who I am uniquely, the environment that I'm in, the relationships that I'm in, and they're able to help me more specifically understand what's happening in my life. I don't think than any field that I've ever pursued, whether it be when I was a magician and I was doing illusions and stuff like that, or whether it is in the ministry, that I've ever been able to survive without having a mentor, somebody who is further down the path, sit down and actually help me chart the course. If you don't have a mentor in your life, you are not going to advance. It doesn't matter how many books you read, how many periodicals you read, you will always be behind unless you have someone speaking to you life in context. And many times when I've failed in life, it's when I've not had somebody speaking into my life like that. Community is kind of a buzzword that we throw around a lot these days. And I do as well. And when I really think about community, I realize that probably it goes against a lot of our DNA as youth pastors, even though we claim to be relational. A lot of us felt called to ministry or felt leading in that direction when we were young. We were patted on the back. We were told we were going to go great places and do great things for God with our lives. And then we grew up and we weren't as lovable, cute, and huggable, and it was kind of like time to deliver. And so we kind of have always kind of operated kind of in this Lone Ranger mode. Not everybody, but a lot of us. And we think that we can kind of do it on our own and that our ideas are the best. Nobody else understands us. And it's only in the context of community that we really get the opportunity to have other people's gifts rub up against our own to refine us, to wear off the rough edges that exist in our own thought life and our own lives, the way that we live those out. And so community is absolutely essential to kind of just rounding out the wholeness of who we are as spiritual beings so that we can be the people that God called us to be. Unfortunately, community is really hard to find in youth ministry. The community that we're closest to is also one that judges us, that we work for, and it's difficult. And we have to look sometimes outside of our geographical location to find real community in our lives.
Thanks for watching this Lead 222 videocast. For more information, visit our website at lead222.com.